Hello. Thanks, Ashish, for the introduction once again. And yeah, hi everyone. Nice meeting you all here. I'm so glad you all made it this evening. We were a little nervous putting this event together, knowing that we had 100 plus event folks walking in today. But we also realized that if there is a crowd who's going to be the most forgiving, it has to be this. So yeah, thank you so much once again. And also to get started on our next panel, which is Myth versus Reality State of Event Marketing 2026. We have three panelists with us today, starting with Shreya, who heads marketing at Automation Anywhere. We also have Tarun Malhotra, head of events at Google India. Yes, and also Tunir Malik from Glean. He is the associate director of field marketing. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like it's an honor on this panel on a topic that is so close to my heart and my career. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, I think I would first want to get started on getting to know you a little before we move on to the deeper end of conversations like ROI, which I think is the room's favorite. But yeah, Shreya, my first question is for you. A little birdie, no, actually LinkedIn birdie told me that you joined Automation Anywhere 3 months ago and successfully executed, owned the biggest event, which is Imagine 2026. How was it? How was the experience? Because I cannot imagine doing that in the first 3 months. So I'm sure there's a story out there which we would love to hear.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, we may think we're 3 months old in a company, but we're not too old to be executing this event ever. It's always a new experience. So Imagine, yes, was big in scale, was amazing. We went through a lot of those hiccups that we saw in the desk area. But also, we also realized that, the human element in the event execution, the entire scheme of things that we go through, can't be killed. So anybody who walks into any event, for that matter, even at Imagine, they knew what they were expecting, and we were thinking everything post-event. So that's how we are hardwired. I as an event marketer, I never think of just pre and during. I'm always the moment somebody talks about we got to do this, I'm thinking post-event. A lot of it, like what is the sentiment they're walking out with? What is it that, when they're consuming certain content, is it registering? So I'm keeping myself in the shoes of those attendees. Did that for Imagine as well, and it flowed. It wasn't really a big task because we've done a lot of these things before as well. If you move tomorrow to another organization, if at all she does, you won't find it very difficult either because you've gone through all of it in all these years. So same.
Yes, that's so nice to hear. Talking about flagship events, we have Tarun, who just completed one flagship event, Google Marketing Live last week, had one event yesterday, and you have more coming up next week.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
And you've been with events for 20 years. And I think that's really amazing. I think I want to hear all about your experience of being in this space for as long as you've been, and how you have watched these events in Google evolve over time, from your first edition of Google Marketing Live to now.
Yeah, it's true that I've been in the industry for almost 17 years, 16, 17 years. Yeah, I've seen the evolution of the industry I've seen it from the other side of the desk, which is the agency side. And I think that helps you build a lot of context when you move to the other side, which is being the client. So I think that helps you build yourself as a person, which I think Rajendran sir really called out the story, really true, that how, that person who needs to be in the room is not there, but he has to be. So I think that perspective has changed throughout the last 15, 20 years, where that person is now actually in the room, planning the whole web of things that needs to be planned, whether it's the ecosystem of dashboards, it's the ecosystem of apps that are required, or the emails that need to be sent out, or the creative, the playbooks and everything. I've seen those coming to life in the last few years. So I think that's what has caused, events to become very important. And yes, there was this gap in these 3-4 years of the COVID, which hit, where everything suddenly became digital. But very correctly said, like human is a social animal. We wanted to get back to, bring that personal touch. So been through that phase as well, where everything went digital. You were suddenly doing everything online, seeing each other on screens. So that perspective has also helped, like building back. Now that it's not dead, but it's definitely taken a seat back. And it's still there, but it's more, when you have to reach out like a larger audience, you limit to that. But when you want to create those small intimate connections, that's where an event like GML or Google Marketing Live comes to life. You want to create those connections, and you want to create those, you're not looking at breaking deals there right and then, but you want to, sow that seed. That Kabir ka Doha exactly is what is emphasizes what Google Marketing Live is. You want to tell the people what's new, what's latest, what you want to build through, and what can take you to success, and then see whatever happens. Like, that's the idea of Google Marketing Live, and that's what we're doing with this event, which is happening right now. It moves from one city to another in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, thanks, Tarun. I think human connection is very, very important. And I remember we felt that heat during COVID. But I also liked how the events industry picked up during the time to start doing event, like tech, like the virtual events, right? I remember that picking up, and there were a lot of technology also in place. Like, I know C-Event was one of it. Talking about that, I know you were a product marketer with C-Event for 7 years, Tuneed, and then you moved on to doing field marketing activities with different companies, and now we are heading it at Glean. Is there any particular thing that you picked up and learned about events while marketing a event tech platform, right? Which you are now using while running your events at Glean?
Thank you. It was pretty easy to transition because we as marketers are using a product which we are marketing ourselves as well. And the good part is, and I think that was something that I was discussing as well, that I did not need solution engineers, pre-sales, sales teams to do my demos. I was trained on the product. I went through a full customer success training. So I used to build my own events, and I used to do my own demos, and I used to do my own webinars as well. So that's how I've kind of sort of seen I'm perfectly adaptable to any product that's thrown at me. C-Event in generally has taken over Splash Gold because there are a lot in the market, and there is a certain modus operandi that C-Event follows, but nothing scares me anymore from an event tool standpoint anymore, because I know sort of how to navigate, how to look for workarounds, and then that's what my team does as well. They look for workarounds if there is a certain functionality that's not available, and we get through it, because that's our job. We have to get, we need to keep things moving, and that's what we do. That's how I've seen the space evolve.
Yes, I think I completely agree with that, how we need to keep things moving, be it a large-scale event or a small-scale event, even if it's like a roundtable, right? But I think one thing common across all of these events are the 5 core pillars it sits on. I think one question that we all as event marketers ask is, why are we doing this event? I think defining the intent is extremely important for us. And then comes in the format to achieve that goal. What is the format that we're looking at? Or maybe what is the budget that we want to spend on it, right? And then the entire execution planning and the most important post-event metrics and all of that. So is this how generally an event cycle looks like, Tarun, in Google? Is this how generally it looks like? Or do you all start your conversation, let's say, with the budget and then plan around your event marketing strategy around it?
Sure. So what we do is actually the idea is to create like an events calendar for the whole year, right? So we take intent from all the product areas, all the teams, and create like a calendar, which is kind of a tentative calendar with most of the things almost there. But what happens with the budget which comes into play right now is we don't set up a budget. Like there's no fixed budget to an event, because what we work on is an intent and opportunity kind of a budget. So one product might need more focus. The others might still be a recurring event where, you just have to put a stage and give a speech, tell the people about it, and then you're done. But then those are like more, say 20% of events, but the 80% of events are usually those where you need to put more. You need to build that relationship. You need to give the, create a customer journey. Need to map that customer journey basically to give them a flavor of the experience of what you're talking about, so that they don't go away from the room saying, what did I experience? I just heard a lot of technical jargon maybe. So that's where we come from, the aspect of creating a intent and an opportunity-based budget model for the events. And the calendar goes on, like, you start from your quarter one. I think it goes on, it's an always on kind of a thing till Q3, where you actually see your runway ending for the year. So I think that's how we go about it, yeah.
Nice. Is that how it looks like
Yes.
at automation too?
For me, whether it's automation anywhere or anywhere else, budget has never dictated ambition for me, right? It's always any company or any team for that matter invests in ideas for us. So I've gone all out with ideas in ways where, it might look like a film fair on the day in my head, and I've not thought of the budget, but I will propose it. And then there are ways and means of working it out. Sometimes it's worked out in a way where the other side has invested in that idea. So because I've had that experience, I never treat budget as a hurdle. That's never my first thought. So it's always very intentional. Anything that we curate, it sprouts from the thought, what are we trying to do? Why are we doing this? What is it that we're trying to meet? It's the business problem, basically. How are we trying to translate that through our event strategy? Simple. Event is not even a proposition on the table usually. It just designs itself. Once you have all these questions answered, right? What are we trying to do? Okay, what is the organization trying to solve? Not just us, not just sales. What are we trying to solve here? Is it awareness? Is it enterprise pipeline? Is it just meeting the current customers? Is it trying to work out the churn? What is the objective? And then the design is on my plate, and then I go all out. And then there are always ways and means to work. Budget is, yes, critical, very critical, but it comes in the end for me.
Is that how it works at Glean as well? Because
So from a Glean standpoint, what we do is we have a budget assigned to us towards the end of fiscal, the previous fiscal.
Okay.
So let's say if our fiscal starts in February, our budget is assigned to us, or at least we have some sort of sense of where this is going. Budget, like Shreya said, never is a problem because we are in AI stage. And to make money, you have to spend money. It's very, very simple. So we get a certain budget ideation that's there, that's available to us. And then what we start doing is we start breaking this down into priorities. For an example, there is an A, B, or C, or 1, 2, or 3 tier priority. So let's say, for an example, if there are certain events or third-party conferences, owned events, roundtables, whatever it is, has worked out really, really well, that's priority 1. Then there is great to do, that's priority 2. That there is good to do, but it's okay if we don't do it, then we'll still be fine. Then there is a third category of events. So if we keep on getting more budget, that's where you'll keep on picking on tier 2 events and tier 3 events and so on and so forth. But by the start of the fiscal, because we have a budget alignment very, very categorically set for us, 1st February when our fiscal starts, we already know what we're doing in the next 6 months. What I've learned as an event marketer is that I've been very, and there is that OCD factor as well, where I generally don't tend to keep a lot of budget handy to myself and I spend it. And every marketer should do that, spend the money. But what I've learned is that always keep 20% buffer from a budgeting standpoint. You will run into certain great events that perhaps you should have been a part of, and since you've run out of money, there's nothing that you can do, or look for partners like Google Cloud to fund it.
On the contrary, I'm very frugal. I'm very frugal with money. So anytime I have money under my hand, I literally am thinking, where is it going and all that. But even to the teams that we lead, right, we give this guidance that forget about the budget, come up with ideas. We'll talk budget later. And sometimes it's happened, the idea in my head is like 50K idea. I'm not thinking money. I'm thinking about the idea and the impact. And then cut to, I only have 5K. Yeah. How do I make ends meet here? But it happens because, somehow we all make it work on the same drawing board. Cut down some things that are not needed, but invest on the thing that's really going to be the game changer. It just happens.
yeah, I think I agree with that because that's how it works at Zoho as well. We will go all out with ideas, we'll put them on the paper, and then we work backwards. We're like, then once the cost comes in picture, we're like, hey, is this worth it? And then we see, and then we go on the process of what do we remove, what do we keep, what's important, what's not important, right? So I think talking about, I remember you mentioned about third-party events as well in your, when you get a budget, right? So where does that currently sit right now for you all? How important is it at Glean, Tanir?
Quite important because we're a sort of a new age company at this point. We're creating a product category for ourselves as well. So there is a lot of awareness that has to be built in the market. So if we keep on doing our own events, there's a dearth of database that's available in public that we're not tapping into, and that's where we would want to continue doing third-party events. And then brand awareness we have spoken about. So database and brand awareness is what we extract out of third-party conferences. Of course, there are agencies and vendors that you work with who would give you an advantage of what you're looking to do at that particular third-party conference, whether you have a booth, speaking slot, plenary, one-on-ones. They've gone to that extent of offering one-on-ones as well. So we look at what the inclusions are, what the spend is, what the pipeline goals are, would we be able to meet it, audience filtration, all of that stuff is going to happen. But we will continue to do third-party conferences. I did have a thought in my mind where I think 5-6 years before, of course, 2019, 2018, we used to try and do a lot of trade shows to get a lot of leads, and nobody talks about leads anymore. They talk about pipeline, which basically means that a 30 people event could work way better than a 3,000 people event. So that's where instead of trying to do more of trade shows or huge conferences, we've kind of curtailed ourselves down to persona-focused events. Let's say even if there are 200, 300 people event, we would perhaps do those rather than doing 5,000 people events. That's what we have kind of learned.
Yeah, I think micro events in general has picked up a lot, even if it is like a lot of brands are opting 10 people in a room with a high impact conversations over 100 people or 1,000 people conferences, right? So I think a lot of third party events are also doing that now, wherein in a larger conference, you will still be able to get a smaller room and get like a set of 15 people that you want to sit down and have a conversation with. And I think a lot of brands lately are kind of picking it up and doing that. But with regards to Google, Tarun, when Google is present at an event, it is seen. Like, for example, at Impact AI, I remember Zoho had a booth, and diagonally opposite to it was Google. I was massive. Like, the booth was massive, and we could tell the amount of energy, effort that's gone into set that, right? Like, I'm sure it was not something that you picked up like a month prior and said, hey, you know what, let's do this event, right? So I'm sure a lot of effort went in, and I think I want to hear about your experience of doing these third-party events for a brand like Google.
Yeah, sure. So, see, there was a time when these third-party events used to be very episodic. Like, you have a brand placement here, you have a logo here, you have a look and feel here, and that's what it was all about, like your presence at a third-party event. I think from a Google's perspective, it comes down to the fact that we need to tell the world of what Google is doing actually, right? So when we look at a third-party event, we look at partnering them as a thought partner. And it is not just about visibility. So as being a thought partner, then we look at ways of telling the world about what is Google contributing. So if I talk about India specifically, like tell the world what Google is doing actually in the medical field. Talking specifically about AI, how AI is changing the world. So when we talk about thought leadership, it is not about Google. It comes about how AI is changing the world and what is Google's contribution to that. So we focus on that. So we do plenaries, we do breakouts, we do, we bring in important speakers to the conference, which add not value to the Google's ecosystem, but it adds value to the third-party hosts events ecosystem. So we do that. And then comes places where you see, like you just talked about, a pavilion or a booth, yeah? So that actually gives us an opportunity to bring these actual real-time case stories to life. We would want to tell the world that we are partnering with AIMS to do something which helps people quickly solve their medical problems. We are partnering with somebody so that Gemini helps solve school problems for kids very easily. So real world problems coming to life, to fruition. So that's the aim, and that's where third-party events become really important for us, whether it's AI Summit or whether it's Waves, which talks about media, where YouTube actually comes to life with all, the whole creator ecosystem and all that comes to life. So yeah, that's the perspective we have for third-party events, and I think it's going to be really important in the times we are right now with AI picking up, already picked up in fact. So it's going to be, I think, really important.
No, I agree. I think with regards to third-party events also, there's a lot of events that's happening out there, right? Like to a point where at some time it feels like a noise. Like every other day, I'm sure your phone rings with different calls asking for sponsorship and different conversations pitching you about these events. So sometimes it's also important for us to cut through these noise and identify that one event that you think will work for us. But I think my question is for you, because I have not seen automation anywhere for a while now at any of these industry events. Zoho is not present at a lot of these events. We're very picky about where we are, but wherever we've been, I don't think we've seen.
You will not find us everywhere, and that's not just
Interesting.
yeah, that's not just automation anywhere. It's also understanding the product, right? These work in niches, whether it's automation anywhere, whether it's my previous organization, Jamf. Both of them have a niche audience. Like there's Apple audience for Jamf, and then even for this RPA, APA, there are very few people who we want to target here. Now, couple of nuances here when I evaluate industry events. Like I said, I'm frugal. I'm this conjuice person sitting on the desk, and I do have budget, yes, for sure. But they're criminally expensive for the value that they can bring to me. To me, what is it that I am taking away from each of these industry events matters a lot to me. The exclusivity I'm getting, that also I do see wherever my competitor is there, you'll probably see us there. You'll see us going there because we know they're talking to the same crowd. Of course, we want to talk to the same crowd. But I would want to know what is the perception of so-and-so event in the minds of the customers that I am focusing on. If they're going there, are they going just because there's an invite? Do they think it's important for them to be a part of that particular event? What is it that they have in mind? It matters, the perception of that event in my customer's mind. If it's brutally positive, sure, I'm there. If it's something where, I'm just meeting a couple of people, making some noise around my brand, I don't need that. I would rather, it's like going in a neighbor ka shadi versus inviting people at my shadi, right? It's that kind of intention there. So it's always your owned audience materializes better than, invited audience at other events, I feel.
I had a quick sort of, on the filtration part, I would look at the agenda of the event. And if there are too many sessions from the sponsors, that is not the event to be at. Very simple, because the sponsors or partners, whatever we want to call them, they will start pitching products, and the learning, because the audience is expecting learning out of that, some practical inputs that they can utilize in their jobs or whatever. I think that is a giveaway, where the agenda, if it has too many sponsors, don't do that event. That's how we're able to sort of filter this down as well.
I think perception leads to reach also, right? Like, what is the perception that you're actually building for the people to come, and then that's it's the outcome that you're looking forward to in the end. So I think what I'd like just to add is that you'll get your CSAT, you'll get your PR, you'll get your reach, you'll get all that stuff. But I think there is something that's very important in a third party event, which you get is the share of voice. I think what you're talking about, what you are going to talk about, what you're showing people is going to be really important for people to take away. Like Tunir just said, I think the takeaway is really important. So what you put forward to the audience is something that they take away. And when you do it with a lot of conviction, bringing in the right speakers, bringing in the right, you know your audience. Like if it's key opinion formers, you know what kind of topic you're going to talk about, what kind of speakers are required there. So when you build that thing together, I think you just have a bang on third party event probably.
Yeah,
Also, Devi, I feel that we, as marketers, we focus on industry-based use cases a lot right now. So if at all there's, say, I'll just take BFSI as a segment here. It's been important for us ever since. Any organization, it's one of the crucial revenue-generating function for me. So if they are there, if there are people from that sector anywhere, now, 5-6 people calling me in a day, different agencies. We are hosting this CX roadshow, we are hosting this, that. Now, these people have multiple touch points to attend to in a month. Look, think about their psychology as well, right? How are they viewing these events? For some of them, and I've spoken to these CIOs, like, why are you at this event? There are these brutal conversations we get to over dinner, right? And they're like, yeah, wo bulate hain, hum aa jate hain. That's the response, right? That's not the crowd for me. Wo nahi baat karegi. They're not going to talk about any business proposition or any use case to me, and they're just doing a formality. I've seen this now. Now, because I've had this sentiment out of these roadshows, I wouldn't go there. And I would, if I'm there, there'd be a round table separately. They'll be invited to my event following that. So what I'm seeing it's important for some, of course, wherever you are in your journey as an organization. But for us, Automation Anywhere, as you asked, it's important for us to reach the right audience, and it's not happening at industry events for sure, until and unless it's exclusive gathering of 15 people, where we can talk in depth why we do RPA, why we are into the repositioning game, and why we are leaders in this space.
I think one thing that I picked up this year on how to cut through this noise of the calls that we get, right, regarding the sponsorships and everything, the first question I asked them is, are you using any event tech? Not because we have backstage, but because I think at a lot of these events, we're talking tech, we have CIOs in the room, but there's absolutely no technology to capture the conversation that's happening in the booth level. I still have sales team bringing back business cards, and then we are filling that up into a sheet, and then I'm thinking like, hey, we have tech of our own, and we're talking AI at these conferences. So that's the first question I asked them. Do you have a tech in place? How are you helping us? How are you enabling us with leads, to capture how are you capturing conversations at the booth level, right? I think that becomes very important. Like Raj said, like context is very important, which gets lost at an event. So I think that's how we've been doing this, and it's opened up a lot of conversations with partners as well, where we are telling them like, hey, you know what, there are a lot of tools out there which can be used for this. So yeah, I think with regards to third party, like you said, it can work for some. For some, it's important, especially if you're getting started for brand visibility awareness, if you have to sum it up. But like you said, having these sideline events are also very important, just to have that captured audience, so that you can talk your product, you can talk your solutions or your intent, what you want to do with that crowd, right? Yeah, I think moving on to the next important topic that I wanted to talk to you all about is stakeholder management, because I know, I think event marketers here will agree with me that we sometimes are the sole defenders of attendee experience at an event. Because there's a product team, there is a marketing team, there is a sales team, and everybody has an intent of what they want to achieve. And to make that happen, there are certain opinions that come, certain feedback that comes. But then I think all the time we have to make sure that we keep the attendee at the center of it and make sure that the event feels tailor-made for them and not for us, So how are you achieving this, managing and balancing stakeholders internally, and still making the attendees feel like the event was meant for them, Yeah.
Firstly, if you're talking about internal stakeholder management here, it's not so painful now, because across the board, they also realize that there are gaps that can happen. And you have to be brutally honest with them when you're planning it with them. You know what? Attendee experience will get compromised here. And then they'll be like, yeah, we don't want to do that. What do you suggest? So the fact that we have to be so honest with them is what my playbook is. Wherever it cannot work, I'm very honest that it will not work. This is what we are compromising on here. And then they see the point. They'd also come up with suggestions that are very helpful for us then. So that's what we do. And then also making sure the attendee journey is lived by you as an event marketer matters a lot. Not just 1 or 2 days before the event, even when you're planning it, right? How are they coming in? We spoke about having an app, having real-time experience and printing of badges, etc., etc. So the cues, starting from there, right? We want to visualize this even before we are on site doing dry runs. Like there will be multiple people in one queue. That's a pathetic experience. How do we curtail that? Certain other things, in main stage, people can't sit for 40, 50 minutes straight. How do we make it more interactive, capsulated, blah, blah, blah. So these are the things. Living through that attendee experience through the day or how many ever days your event is very important. And we visualize it as a team.
Yes. So, Tarun, do you want to add on to this from your experience of running events?
Sure, certainly. So, like I think I called out recently in the previous discussion as well, I think it's very important for us to build that customer journey so that we make sure that what they're taking away is really what they're actually here for, right? So, to build that whole thing, I think it's important not just to make sure that you don't have a queue at the registration, or you're rooming in the logistics, your car came on time and your flight was on time and you're back in the hotel at the right time. I think your experience starts from that point for sure. But I think once you're in this ballroom, I think that's where the actual journey begins, where whatever is being spoken about on the stage is actually what they're here to look and see and take away with. Again, taking the keynote which Rajendran sir was talking about, like it was a perfect journey of how an event marketer looks at, right? So very apt for me as I look back to my years and could really resonate, it really resonated with me, I'm sure with a lot of people, sure. So I think that's what the content, first is the content basically. So what you build on stage actually has to resonate with the audience. And then I think it's very important for you to build and create that connect from the stage to actually physically making them experience that. So I think it's very important to build those sandboxes where when you're talking about, say, for example, Gemini Omni, which is Gemini's model where you can create videos by just prompting. If you're talking about it is in the context of how you can quickly create your, short ads, for example, you make a booth outside where people can actually go and actually create like a quick advertisement, which is a fun engagement. Maybe there's a way you can take it out and you have an opportunity to post it on social and talk about how great it is, right? So that journey from experiencing it from the stage to the sandbox, I think is very important for people to experience and get the right takeaway.
Tunir, I'm going to flip this question for you because I have a feeling you've been a stakeholder when you were doing the product marketing for event for example, right? And you have worked with events team on this. So what has the experience been for you as a stakeholder with how do you balance between, the expectation that you have from how to position a product at an event to making attendees as a center of experience?
I mean, so taking Tarun's point, right? So, and we were discussing this the other day. So user-led, practitioner-specific sessions is what we focus on. I mean, it's always a mixed bag. We don't focus on doing one kind of event through the course of the year. It has to be a mixed bag. No, all eggs not in one basket, basically, all of that stuff. So we have a thing called Explore Labs that we would do. There is a sandbox environment that's created for people. And then we give them, a username and a password, and we are very categoric in the registration confirmation emails that are sent to them that please do bring your laptop to experience the product, because we would walk you through on how to build agents. Like today, people would want to know how to build agents themselves. There are conversational agents. It used to be working as flowcharts that you have to drag and drop and then understand, make sure that the data points are correctly mapped to it, just so that the data source is pulling in the information that you need for a particular step. Now you can create agents on a conversational basis. And how do people experience that? When they have the tool in front of them, they have the laptop, they can walk through. And there is, of course, a pre-sales engineer walking them through the whole steps of experiencing the product. And that's where people find most value. I think that's what I would perhaps push people to do more of, which is letting people experience the products. And then the other thing that I've kind of seen work at cell-phone events is people love customer stories, where I was giving Dviksha the example as well, that let's say if I had somebody from Vodafone Idea as a part of my event, they would want to know if I have Airtel as my customer, what is Airtel doing and how is it using Glean, for an example. So that's where I think you will create that affinity and understanding that, okay, this is how a telecom company, I'm just taking an example, this is how a telecom company uses Glean and how can I do the same thing or perhaps better. So customers and then the sandbox.
I think I agree with you on the relevance part, right? Like, for example, at some of our events, we used to keep product brochures at the booth, but I don't think anybody picks that up anymore because they are walking around so many different booths with so many brochures. Then we switched it. We started keeping customer story booklets, like with relevant industries mapped out. So, if someone's from telecom, and then we're putting a story of a telecom in, like how we solve some solutions in a telecom industry, right? And we saw a lot more people actually picking it up. They wanted to read that part alone, and they would be like, can we keep this? And we were so surprised. We're like, hey, people actually want to take a brochure back with them, So I understand that whole relevance part of, like customer stories actually sells a lot, at these events when we talk. But I think the important part of all of these events that we do, the kind of efforts that different teams put in here, and then comes the metrics, like how do we track it? How do we measure the ROI out of it? And I think that's a very interesting data point that we came across, which was in 2025, 70% of event organizers told that they were finding it difficult to map their ROI from an event marketing effort. but that same number has dropped from 70 to 40% this year. So I want to understand from you all on, have you all had this in your particular organization? Do you think AI has a role to play in this? Tony?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the core KPIs that we follow, and of course, there's nothing wrong and right here. There are companies who work in a different way, and then ours is focused on pipeline and ROI, very, very simple. So we, at the start of the year, like we have a budget, we have a pipeline goal, and there is a 10x ROI multiple that we have to meet. There is nothing else that matters around it. You could have an event where there is just one person sitting in the audience, and then there is a 3,000 people event where the one person was responsible for $1 million closure. So that works better. So that's what we've done. I think it's a give and take, where I think what we have consolidated for ourselves is pipeline, and that's what we follow as our North Star for everything that we do. We talk a lot about, of course, once we're done, of course, there's a lot of discussion for the pre and during, but there is a lot of conversation that goes into the post, because that's where the most leakage happens. There is a lot of things that would go through the cracks. And Salesforce generally has been helping us out. So each time there is a certain campaign that's done, every time there is a tagging that happens, and that tagging kind of ensures that we're able to track through all the leads that are tagged to that campaign, and then of course we're able to see the NBB that got generated, and there is an influence opportunity that got generated out of it. So tracking has gotten way, way better than it was perhaps 5-6 years ago.
Yes.
Me? So I think pipeline is the bookish term that is followed in all organizations, but honestly, when you look at event, the touch point that we're creating, every touch point, I'm not going to even say event, every touch point has a different metric attached to it. Not every, like I said, end goal, North Star will always be pipeline in the world we live in an ideal world we live in. But I've done events where, my simple objective was to make sure my leader has 15 executive connects from this particular event. And this was for a group, for a conglomerate, that we were designing an ABM strategy, basically. And we were just brainstorming, what do we want out of it? Pipeline wasn't really, we couldn't talk about pipeline at that extent, because half the entities in that very conglomerate didn't know about us. So my only objective here was to ensure he's enriched with those 15 interactions at this one roundtable / roadshow, whatever you want to call it. So that was my intention. That was my objective. It was called out that way. We did the event. We had 17 to 18 connects. I went back home happy. We both knew that we have spoken. We have collected a narrative on what's happening in their environments. Now let's nurture it. But the eventual ROI that had to come out of that event came out, because the objective was set that way. And then, of course, we did our homework around pipeline conversion, which is done in a systematic manner. But the intention was simple. You will meet these 17 people at this event, 17 CIOs who are core to you. And then we'll talk pipeline business, blah, 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 blah. So it depends. It really depends on what kind of objective are you looking at here.
Yeah, I think I agree with that when you said the ROI measurement also is very aligned with the intent of it. Sometimes you're also doing an event, for example, just awareness, right? Like, it's very important to let people know that you have these solutions, like awareness. How do you measure that, right? So, I think this was a good conversation for us here, and there's a lot that me as an event marketer I have picked up and I've learned, and I think I want to take back and try. I think given the time, there's one last question that I have for each one of you, because the topic says myth versus reality. I'm going to ask each one of you to tell us one myth that you have busted over the last couple of years of doing events. Tony?
I think I've already mentioned it. So bigger events are not better events. Better conversation are better events. That's the myth that's been busted. It totally depends on the matrix as well. But at the current juncture that we are in, that everybody is talking about the money that they're making, the ARR and everything, I think better conversations would lead into better events. That's what's very, very clear now.
Shreya?
I think, for me, there are many myths that we bust day in and day out through every event, but one of my favorites is stage is the main event. That's what we usually think, right? All the energy goes into how slides are being prepared, very important, key. what is being positioned, messaging, etc. Very important. But we stop at that most of the times. That takes up like 70% of our focus. No, a lot of it is happening outside that, right? The conversation's happening outside. How are you engaging with that very customer? Besides, they're just sitting here. Now after this, there'll be a networking session. In between, where are you seated? All of those things. We take care of it when we curate. For example, at Imagine, we made sure that on every table, cluster seated, we have one automation anywhere expert sitting there. So that the conversation is also a little driven towards what we're trying to achieve here, and awareness is created, questions are answered, intent is addressed. So I think that's the myth that I'm trying to address here, is that main stage is the main event. No.
Thanks. Tarun?
Yeah, I think having seen so much being developed in the event sphere in the last few years, I think the one myth that probably needs to be busted, or has been busted a bit as well, I think, is the firefighting, chaotic event producer probably. You know, I think things have changed, have changed for the better, and if not, I think the mindset has to change. I think it has to come to a place where the event producer is not a chaotic firefighter, but is a solid ecosystem built of, you know, the correct planning, the correct dashboards, the correct, you know, the products, the tools. I think once that is all coming together, I think you have a very smooth journey of building a nice event which leads to the right reach, the outcome that one envisions basically. I think that's something that needs, if it has not been adopted, I think this needs to be unlearned and brought back into the perspective. Having seen both the agency and the client side, I think this is the biggest takeaway for me, I think, which needs to be brought to reality. If not now, then probably you'll miss the train.
No, I think I like that one because I feel like if you have done the planning right and you have done everything in the pre-planning stage of the event correct, you will know how smoothly the event flows on the event day. And I think I agree with that.
What
Yes.
if it rains in the morning?
Some things are not
Because
in our control, but
I
yes.
do events in Singapore and it rains every morning. I wake up and I open the curtains praying that it's not raining, and the event is at 10. You can't control that. So
Yes.
I'm just saying.
No, I agree. Some things are not in our control, but what can be controlled is something that we can work on, I guess. But yes, we have last 4 minutes that I think we can use to take up any questions in the room that you all have. We have one right here.
So first of all, hello. Yeah. Hi. Fantastic panel. Great points by all of you. I was just hearing this whole pipeline, right? Why do we have to stick to just that one metric which suddenly somebody wants to measure us from? Don't you guys think that gone are those days when we, you know, and now, especially now, you know, the way things are changing around us and the kind of pressure all of us, right, wherever we are working, all of us are under tremendous pressure in terms of our budgets are getting slashed. There is, the business is, even after being super profitable, still there is a pressure, right? What do you guys think about moving from just looking at a pipeline and moving into looking at what came out really, right? So the ROI, why are you limiting yourselves to pipeline? Why are we not started talking about that what has come out? ROI is the revenue when it comes in. It's not really the pipeline. So I would really like to know if you guys are already seeing this happening, or if you have, I mean, you know, what's really happening in that side?
I have seen that, Casey, and which is why I said, whilst it may be our North Star, but there are these various objectives that every event is solving for us. There are, like, how can you discuss pipeline when you don't even know 5 people in your wish list of 70 people? How will you go about it? You can't just put a number there and then come back and do the math. It will never go right. And it's just a moot point, like we say, right? It doesn't make sense. So our objectives have also been, which is why I do micro objective setting with my stakeholders, whether it's the SE, whether it's the salesperson, whether it's my own MD. And this is something that was taught to me by one of the mentors that I had. I did objective setting, and that was, we'll talk pipeline later. What is it that you don't have right now which will lead us to that? So first thing is, do you know these people? Have we mapped these people? Do we know what their current technology landscape is? Do you know what they're evaluating? Have you ever met them? So these are the things we are trying to answer, and solving through one touch point one event at one point is what we're doing. And these are the micro objectives. One event can't solve everything, by the way. It cannot, it just can't. So our organizations expect us to do that. After every event, the questions we are bombarded with, what did this yield? So, kya aaya? Yeah, so the way I've learned to, also for me, right, ethically, I also want to show value through these events. And that value comes in these forms and formats that you didn't even have this. Once we got back, you got to know 17, 18, 20 people from your own wish list. Now, what do we do to capture this value now? Let's talk about that then. That's a sales and marketing conversation. But we weren't talking pipeline when we were doing this. Aditya Birla was the account that we're talking about here. We've met Novelis, Grasim, everybody then. So, when you don't even know these people, let's not talk pipeline. Let's first get to know them. Then talk value capture. So, my experience has been this as an ABM practitioner. I look at pipeline much later. Core problem is firstly addressed.
Yeah, I mean, boardroom, VC realm is the answer to it. The boardroom, the core thing, perhaps the second or the third slide that they have, when there is a boardroom presentation that's happening to Kleiner Perkins or Sequoia or whatever, they will have that, what kind of run rate are we on? Like, if there is a certain spend in that particular quarter, what ARR are we hitting with that? And perhaps, whoever I speak to, eventually the core goals are tied with the amount of money that you spend and the amount of money you made against it. That's what we're driven to do. That's the realm that we are in. Of course, we try and support our sales team with as much of multi-threading as possible. Let's say if you met somebody at a certain trade show, we would try and do an ancillary event like you mentioned. We would do roundtables, executive roundtables. Let's say if you met the CIO, but we would perhaps want to expose our team to the CFO, for an example, for the budgeting part of it. We would do multi-threading as much as possible, but eventually even that engagement is going to be judged against the spend or the budget that's been spent on it, and then eventually we'll be able to convert or accelerate that deal. To that point, what we have done is we have separated the budget from a first touch, that this is the money that you're responsible to generate pipeline against, but we have separated out a pipeline acceleration money as well. So against that, we're not responsible for the 10x ROI multiple that we're supposed to meet from a pipe gen budgeting standpoint. That's what we have done. So we have two streams of budget.
I hope that answers the question, Casey.
I think for me, North Star has become conversion now, because these are things that we've been questioned on. Like pipeline, go on. Conversion. We go to sales also with how much did you convert? Pipeline we generated. It's like, come on, I can do that. I know I can do that.
But beyond
conversion, you tell me about that.
But beyond that,
yeah.
Dhanda, eventually revenue. Yeah. Where is the dollar value is what we eventually come back to. That's where we are.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Can I just add?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just one small point. I think we've covered the part of the pipelines, why pipeline is important for all of us. We also look at headroom opportunity, for sure. But I think what is important is to look at how you get your product adoption right in place. So that might take 90 days, that might take 120 days, or maybe 6 months. But I think that's the most important metric that you, it is important for you to look at other than pipeline as well, because that's what adds the value. So yeah, that's the only point.
Yes. Thanks, Tarun. Any more questions? Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy. I take care of employee experiences and leadership experiences at Intuit. Wonderful session, first of all. Thank you for taking us through your processes, your thought processes, your journeys in your individual companies. My question is, with all the jobs being replaced by AI, Where do you think us event managers stand today? And do you think, and if at all, if you have adopted AI into your event management processes? Frankly, personally, I've not seen too much of usage as an event planner and as an event manager myself, but would love to hear your thoughts.
We're looking at Google for the answer.
Okay, sure, I can help you with that. Yeah, see, first of all, we portray AI as, like you said, that AI is taking jobs. I don't think we look at it that way. Like AI is a co-pilot, right? It helps you get to where you probably could not reach or could probably have taken maybe, just for the metric, say 2 days, you would reach there in probably a day. So that's how AI has to be treated. It's like your co-pilot where, so coming to an event manager's perspective or an event producer's perspective, I think there are a lot of ways where we also are trying to build, AI into events. So to give you an example, I think creative is the biggest facet where, when you work with your agency partners, first of all, the first thing that you say, for example, is are you looking at at a mood board? Like you've briefed them, you've told them what is required, and now you need to set like an expectation to how you see it coming to life. You build a mood board. Now for a creative person sitting together with their, the copywriters and everybody sitting and sketching that mood board, probably would have taken 3 days, and they would say, we'll come back in 3 days. With Gemini, putting my product here in, but using AI here, you probably could do that in a day's time, right? So that turns around and probably you could do multiple options. You could give them opportunity to choose out of these 5 options that this is the look and feel. And then you could add your own touch. Like you're not asking for AI to write that write-up to explain what you designed, but because you've only put in your thought into that AI as a chat, that this is what you want, and you keep trying until you get your right perspective out, you wouldn't propose that to the client, right? So I think this is one example where we are also trying to bring it out with our agency partners to quickly turn around, to shorten these turnaround times. And then there are other case stories as well, like we're trying to build in perspectives where research is very important to look at the competitive landscape of what the competition is doing or what's happening around the world, to learn also from, recently Cannes just happened. So instead of just looking at hundreds of websites, can I just quickly look at and just maybe search on AI mode and just find out what did Meta do there, or what did any other brand, Spotify did there maybe. So I think there are multiple use cases which you just have to think from an event producer's perspective, event marketer's perspective, which can help your journey. You're not just sitting and planning an event. You're actually thinking about how you can build and learn from what's happening across the world, and then putting it onto a paper to show people that what you are trying to build actually. So yeah, there are ways. I think it's just a muscle you'll have to build. Yeah, that's my perspective.
I think to your question, AI won't take your job, but an AI savvy marketer will take your job tomorrow. So get AI savvy. That's something that I was told when I had that question too. So AI won't, AI savvy marketer would.
I think I'm going to save that question for the CMO panel as well. I'm going to ask that question to them, by the way. Yes, any more questions? Yeah, I think we can take one more question, given the time crunch. Sorry.
Thank you so much, panel. It's good to see you all here. And we are in the industry of semiconductors, and we manufacture atomic force microscope, where we come into the place of nanotechnology and semiconductor testing. We have 2 wings, which is like industry, and one is like research field. But in these 2 wings, I always get requests from a sales team like, we need to participate in this event to close a PO. Or like, we need to satisfy this customer and we need to sponsor this event. So it's very usual in my product and in my case. I would just like to know like how you people handle if you have ever faced this kind of scenarios from your sales team. They insist you to participate, but somewhere like you are afraid to show it on your results, like how this comes. It's already closed PO or like a closed deal, but you just need it to get the PO. So how you people will handle it? Sponsorship requests from...
I've run into that. So again, we look at, there are events that, let's say, that particular prospect at that particular stage is doing, and the AE wants us to sponsor their events. what I do is I have to go through each and every detail, the filtration process that we were talking about, what kind of audience there is that the kind of companies that we're matching. I think between me and my team, the decision is, let's say, if you're going to a particular event, let's say there are 200 companies in that event, I'm just making things up, at least 2/3 of that has to match my kind of personas and the companies that I am focusing on. If it's 50%, if it's 40%, I'm sorry, I will not be able to do it. Sometimes you just have to push back. That is, it's an art, of course. You will learn through as you keep on growing in your careers, absolutely that will happen. But there has to be a categoric pushback that needs to happen, and there has to be a maths behind it that because I will invest money, there's going to be an expectation for me to generate pipeline out of that. I'm so sorry, I'm mentioning pipeline again. But since there's going to be an expectation, and that expectation is going to be on you, and there is a particular conversion percentage that we're looking at. If we don't meet the right set of people at that particular event that you're asking me to sponsor, I'm so sorry, I would not be able to do it.
One more question, Puneet. So as you just mentioned, you do handle events in Singapore. So just like in the same way, I do take care of Middle East and Southeast Asia along with India. I have seen one big differentiation in terms of spot registration. So when I plan an event somewhere out of India, so if I plan for 250, I do extend it to 280 or like sometimes 300. It's always in the what I planned. But in India, it's quite difficult. Sometimes I do get more than 30 spot registrations. So there are like people which are like very valuable and may turn into as a PO or like some sales lead after that. But how do you handle in such scenarios? And do you have seen like this kind of differentiations?
Absolutely. I went through this in Imagine as well, and we were prepared because it's the developers, right? And they want to know from the co-founder's mouth what is happening in this space. So we did have a lot of people that turned up on the spot. But what we do is, of course, there are always pre-registrations that are prioritized, and that is always communicated to on-the-spot registrations as well. And this is communicated internally as well. This is how the process will flow if we have on-the-spot registrations. We politely ask them that we are currently prioritizing the pre-registered candidates. Please wait. And we have that timer on how much time we are making them wait, nothing beyond 15 minutes. Then we gauge what is the audience turnaround looking like right now. Do we have space, et cetera, and we take a call to action then. That is completely on us. If it's very crucial, yes, sometimes you have to just let it in. But then every case is crucial with sales, right? You know that, how that goes. So at times we just have to say, we have to make a judgment call around what we have planned already, go as per the planning and follow that sanely so that everybody remains sane. And you also have your data points, always. Event marketers have a lot of data points to put forward and logically back their reasoning why this is not possible. Even in your previous question, if the salesperson AE has data points, you too have data points. It's an integrated platform, whether it's SFDC, whether it's Zoho, CRM, whichever it is. So you also build on your data points and give them the reasoning on why this is not possible or why it is possible. So data points make all the difference on how logical you're being with your answer. That's how we solve problems. That's how I could solve Imagine problem as well. We had to say no to a few people. And very politely, that was done in a very seamless way.
Thank you. I do keep my own points, but I wanted to know, like, you people have experiences. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Shreya, Tarun, and Tuneer for joining us today. It was nice hosting you all, and I hope you also enjoyed being part of this panel. Thank you once again. Thank you all. I hope you have a good time here. Thank you.